opening question, just to get us talking and thinking about things and thinking in the way that I want things to go. These 4 movies all have something in common. Anybody take a guess as to what it might be?
Have they all won Oscars?
They've all won Oscars. Yeah. For what?
Best film.
You were looking. Okay. Yeah, they have all won the Oscar for Best Movie at some point. Okay. And today, what I want to talk about is award systems like the Oscars, okay, and different sorts of prizes. So we're going to have a look at award system, and not necessarily just the award system, but the way in which the people that decide on who gets the awards make that decision. Because there's a lot of them about, actually. That's the Baking Industry Awards for 2014. Construction Industry Awards. That's a Chelsea gold medal. The gardening industry you can think of. And then there are other things like this. Consumer magazines like Which. In this case, this is Uswitch. But the award for fastest broadband, best customer broadband, and also best home broadband. So first question, who do you think might be interested in these awards, in winning the awards in particular? Yeah, does someone else have a go? Who do you think might be interested in winning one of these awards? Let's say a gardener might be interested in winning. Yeah.
Baker.
Would be interested in the baking award. Why would they be interested in winning them? Why would a baker bother to take part in that competition to try and win an award, or a gardener?
Gain publicity.
Publicity. Yeah, publicity.
Get a good reputation.
And get a good reputation. And things like this, fastest broadband and best customer broadband. If
More customers.
it could get more customers. If a company was able to take that and pop it onto their website and say, look, we've won all these 3 awards. And then when you're shopping around and looking for things like broadband, you might decide, well, there's a lot of internet service providers, but this one's won all these 3 awards. Or you're going through a supermarket looking for a loaf of bread, and you see that tagged onto the side of the bread packaging. But what I want you to think about for a moment, a couple of things. We've said already that in some cases, winning one of these awards can make a huge difference to your life, to a person, a struggling artist. It can also make a huge difference to a company because they can tag that logo onto their company branding and it may get them more sales. To you as a person, it might influence your choice. You might be shopping around for something and then see that particular badge or that award on a piece of packaging and think, I'll pick this one instead. So it does have some influence on everyday life. But if you stop for a moment to think that little bit deeper about those awards, who is it who makes the decision? I think I asked this group last time if you could have a look to see how the Oscars would award it. Did anybody have a look? Yeah.
Is it something to do with the producers and the directors?
It is to do with producers and directors and actors and a whole group of people together. There's a committee, an American movie committee, the American Motion Picture Arts and Science Academy or Society that decide on it. And they have around 5,000 members, which are producers, screenwriters, actors and all of those people. But 5,000 or 5,000 to 6,000 people make that decision on the best movie. So I want to look at who makes the decision, but more importantly, how do they make that decision? And also, does that decision actually achieve its aims? So in this case, is the best movie really the best movie? Or is it just the best movie that some critics think, and actually it may not be the best movie? Now to help us do that, I've got a little bit of an activity that I want you to look at, and it involves an art competition. Okay, so it's similar to the Oscars, but it involves an art competition. I'm going to give you the sheets first. What I'd like you to do is, I'd just like to have a quick read through. And just to make sure you understand the information in there, once you've had a little read through, okay, so have a look through and then just a quick gut feeling who you think should win the prize, your first instincts, okay?
Oh,
Yeah, go on then, that's brilliant.
I'd say E.
You'd say E, okay? I'll come to you in a second. Tell me why E.
Well, because I only did it at first glance, but it looks like they're the ones that are mostly at the top.
Right. So you had a quick look through and you saw he was at the top in two of the columns
Yeah,
there.
like consistent.
Across in first place. Yeah. Yeah. If I just, at this stage, recap on how the voting's actually put together, so we all understand. These critics have been given 5 pieces of artwork, A, B, C, D and E. 60 judges have been asked to put them in order of preference, called a preference list. So at the top they put their favourite, and then as you go down the list, in this particular group, A is the favourite piece of art, B is the second favourite, working your way down to there, sorry, B being the least favourite, D second favourite, and B is the least favourite in that list. And then they've taken all this together and they've compiled them into this table. So actually, that order, with A as being first choice, B as, D as being second choice, and so on, is the order of 21 out of the 60 judges. Okay? So that's the way in which they're put together.
60 judges, and 21 of them have said that order. So that's more.
Do you want to just share that?
Like, there's 60 judges, so 21 of them said like A's first, and the order. But like with like Millie said about the E being the best because it's come up twice, but that's only been 7 times. So they've said it's
Right.
place.
So possibly A could be a winner if we look at the one that gets the most first place votes. Now there is a little bit of an issue with A being the winner, but I'm going to pop it up here. Okay, it has got most first place votes, and if we use that system, A would win. Can anybody spot a potential problem with A winning? Yeah, go on, John.
A's in the bottom for all the rest of the orders.
Yeah, but A's in the bottom for all the rest of these here. So although it's quite popular with 21 of the judges, it's also not very popular with a lot of the judges there. In fact, do more people like A or dislike A, or should I say the principle? Yeah, yeah. Out of the two liking and disliking, there are more people that actually dislike A. So perhaps using that, and that's a system that we use quite a lot, the first past the post system, the one that gets most first place votes. You just get offered something and then you all vote on it and the winner vote goes through the majority vote. But when we start to look at people's preferences, that might not be the best situation for that. So if we're not going to give it to A at this point in time, or we're thinking we might not give it to A, and we're not going to give it to E, who are we going to give it to and why? So we need to look a little bit further about what alternative systems could we use to make that decision. Now at this point I'm going to hand over to you and give you some time to think. Okay? So who else or which other piece of art might win that competition and why? And have a little bit of time to think about some of the different ways in which you can make that decision. And then what we'll do is in a few minutes, when I've come round and had a look and see what people are thinking about, we'll try and draw some of those ideas together. Okay? The frequency means how many of those 60 judges actually voted for that particular order. Okay? So that order, A, D, E, C, B, was on 21 lists of paper. And they've like stuck them all together on a spike, and that's the pile with that list on, yeah? On that one, there are 14.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, okay. So that's type of thing. So we're trying to take into account the number of people that voted, as well as the position that it's gone in. Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Okay? How did you arrive at that? I'm interested.
So I did like sort of put it into a point scheme,
Okay.
and then like worked out like 5 points for a win, and so on downwards.
Yeah, like you're thinking. And
Maybe
then,
E as well, then.
so how did you work out the score for, let's say, A on your point system?
Like you go through them all like the order it came in, so you get 5 points there, and then 1 for each one of them, so it equals 10 points.
Right, okay.
So on, and whoever had the height.
So A would have 10 points
Yeah.
altogether. Right. There's only one possible thing that I can see with that at the moment. that you've given 1 point to A, but A occurred in first place 21 times.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas you've given 1 point there for E
Yeah.
for occurring 3 times. Did you think that before?
Yeah, I did it all and then realised that it's the frequency.
Yeah.
That's why I put it all out, because I thought, well, we're giving A 5 points, even though the frequency is 21, and we're still giving E 5 points here, even though only 3 voted for E to come first.
Right. So how
But they're still getting the same
how
points
can
for
you
that.
start to introduce that idea of we want to give it so many points for the plays, but we need to also account for how many times they've actually been voted in that position? What might you be able to do for that?
Times it, maybe.
It could possibly work, couldn't it? So
yeah,
if that's got
21 5 points.
first place, it's got 21 times,
yeah,
then you can get a total number of points for that one. Yeah? Okay, so that might be something.
Should we do A?
I feel awful disturbing you, but I really like the way in which you laid out that table there. There's a lot of thought gone into that. You just need to think a little bit about how you're going to work out your overall points now for A. Because I'm assuming that you've given A 5 points for finishing first, but the point we've been making at some of the other tables is that here, can you see that that's getting 5 points, but it's been voted in first place 21 times.
I got 150.
And that one will be get 5 points, but that's only been voted in 3 times. So maybe that's brilliant for setup, and I wouldn't get rid of that at this stage. That's something that you perhaps need to think about. Okay. Have we got a winner? D.
that looks right as well, to be fair, doesn't it?
Can I really like the fact that you said that looks right, because one of the things as maths teachers we like people to do is when they get an answer, to look at their answer and say, ooh, does that seem right? Yeah. So when you said that looks right, what makes you feel looking at that D would be the winner
Well,
from looking at
On
the
average, it's got like the most.
Yeah.
It's got.
High scores.
Yeah. Well, it's
I mean,
not,
it,
it's
look,
not
it's
like
close. D and E are close. They D only won by 2 points, but
that.
D does come above
That
E
could,
quite a lot.
could just be from that's just from the frequency. It's what
Yeah.
it's-
yeah,
That's,
but
that's the main thing
it's
about it.
it's that referring back to the table, and that you've actually come up with a solution, and then you've had enough insight to say, ooh, does that look about right? And you've actually checked your solution to see whether it fits with what you've got there. Yeah, I like.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things, the first thing that normally comes up is people say, oh, it should be E, because E's got 2 first places there, which is exactly what we got right at the very start. And we had a look, and when we looked at the frequency, no, that was actually going to be A in the end. So A's got most first places, which we popped on the board up there, if we go purely on first places. But then we said, oh, well, there might be a problem with A, because A finishes in last place quite a lot. And there might be more people that are unhappy with A than happy with A. Okay? So that's one potential problem with choosing A. One that didn't come up, although I felt that it might do, some people suggest E should win, because E never goes below 3rd place. When you look at that, never at all goes below 3rd place. And if we check one by one, the other pieces of art, they all go below 3rd place. There's A, that's 5 times below 3rd place. B, 3 times below. C, 3 times below. But D's only once below. And this quite often starts to stir up some debate towards the point system, which you already achieved without even thinking about that. You went to the point system. Because then I started to nudge people a little bit by saying, well, let's have a look a little bit further. You see, D's got more first places than E. If they're fairly tied on this, not going below 3rd place, it's got more first places. And actually, if you look a little bit closer, it's also got more second places than E when we compare. It's only when we get into 3rd places that we start to struggle. And E is better in 3rd place. It's got 39 compared with 21. And D's got these 9. But does that 9 in that is it counterbalanced by the fact that it's more popular in the higher places? And that's what the point system does that you've actually been working on. And then normally we arrive at this sort of idea of a point system. Now, I apologise, my point system is the opposite way around to the point system that you've chosen to do, okay? But the idea translates across just the same. It's just that I've awarded 1 place for first point down to 5 for last place, okay? But if I put the figures into a spreadsheet, oh, that's one that came up next to us. Sometimes people just add up the points, and we had this little bit in here, just add up A's points and the positions, and then we get to the situation, well, hang on a minute, because that first place there means that they've done 21 times, and this person's getting the same number of points, but they're only doing it 3 times. So we have to then account for the frequency, which we had discussions around tables about, and that's the sort of calculation that we arrive at, which is why I like your table so much when you were laying that work out, that that's very close to that sort of idea. It's nice, you can see that nice and clearly, okay, the calculations that we're doing. So if I pop those calculations into a spreadsheet, that's the situation that we finish up with to save people crunching through all the calculations. So based on my reverse point system, who should win on that one? It should be D, because yeah, it's the lowest number of points this time. Yeah. Okay, so D would be the winning one for there. All right, so I'm just going to, I've still got my pen. Get it in blue. Okay, so it could be that D wins on the point system. There's a posh name for that. It's called a board account, I think. Not that you need to know it, okay? But that, so A could be the winner, D could be the winner, and if we do the never goes below 3rd place, E could also be the winner. So that's 3 possible winners for that. And there is another system that I want to show you that happens quite a lot as well, that nobody came across. And it's a little bit like the system that works in X Factor, okay, or a TV knockout show, some form of competition. So let's imagine that this is the voting for the art competition, and we're going to do it in rounds, and the one with the least votes, the least popular piece of art in the first round gets eliminated, okay? Just like in X Factor, when you get the votes, the one with the lowest public vote gets eliminated. So in this case, looking through those acts or those pieces of art, A gets 21 votes. Who would be eliminated in the first round from that? E, yeah? E, because E's only got 7 votes by comparison to all the others, yeah? Is that okay? So E gets eliminated. Now if we imagine it's X Factor, these people that are phoning in, or these judges, they still have to vote. We're still going to make them vote. They've got to vote for something. So these people, originally from this list, now their first choice have been eliminated. Logically, who would we say they would vote for?
People have gone for the second choice.
Unless their opinions change, and let's assume that it's not changed, they would logically go for whoever they thought was the second best piece. Now their best piece can't win. So these 4 votes would go to which piece of art? It would go to B, yeah, and those 3 votes would go to C. All right, so if we just have a look at that system. So that would be into the second round now, okay? Who gets eliminated from the second round? D, because D's got 9 votes, and where would D's votes go? Okay, so let's pop that in there and there to C. So we're now down to the last 3. Who's going to go this time? Because, yeah, it's got least votes, so we've got 18 votes for B, and those votes would go to, well, yeah, let's just go through. It can't go to E because E's already gone. It can't go to D because D's already gone. So as I'm working my way down that list, the first one on the list that's still there is C. So those votes would go to C. And so that would mean C is the possible winner. Okay, so if I'm adding things to my board up here, I can also put C wins. And that is using a knockout system, sometimes called a transferable vote. I'll not pop that in. But using a knockout system, okay, a transferable vote system, C wins. So we've got 3 winners, 3 possible winners there, and 4 if we count E as the winner. I'll just pop it up on the screen. Okay, so those are the possible winners that we can have. There's only B that we've not decided on a winner. So remember what I said back at the start, that who makes these decisions, how do they make it, and the important bit, does it really achieve what they set out to achieve? That's the bit that we need to think about when we're deciding on the voting system. Does it achieve what it wants to achieve? If you want a piece of artwork that's going to get people talking about art and discussing it and get a lot of media coverage, so the cameras are going to be interested in all sorts of things, I think A might actually be quite a good option. Why do you think A might stir up a lot of opinion?
Because it's controversial.
Because it's controversial. And that might mean that the TV cameras then are interested in the argument, because some people say, oh, I just love this, and rubbish, what are you giving this one an award for, it's terrible. And all that argument will then carry through into the media, and publicity will carry through. Yeah, so sometimes having that system might actually work. However, if it was a different situation and we were trying to decide on the decoration for school or an office and what would make the best working environment, then maybe A is not such a good choice. Why might A not be a good choice for deciding on a working environment? It's not, well, it's got a lot of unpopular votes there, hasn't it? Yeah. So when people come to work, they're either going to love it or hate it. And there are probably going to be more people hating it than liking it. So it might be in that situation, you need to pick a system that chooses something a little bit more around the middle. You said something really interesting when you were working through your example. At the end, when you've got D coming out for the winner for this point system, what did you say?
Well, I realised that it didn't really work because I didn't look at the frequency.
For that bit, and then after when you discovered that D was your winner, right, you said, oh, that looks right because... You said it looks right because around the middle of the table it looks to be fairly average, isn't it, if you remember. So sometimes something that's around the middle, a compromise choice, might be best in a particular situation. Yeah? If I choose A, it's going to be controversial. Is that a good thing? Is it a good thing to be controversial when you decide somewhere to go on a school trip? Or is it better to settle for something that's around the middle that nobody's going to object to in particular? Okay, and give your reasons for that. And it's important that not just the calculations are right, but the actual, I understand why I've done this maths, and I understand what it means in a real world context is important when you're answering that question. Okay, so for that to be taken in and marked using the sort of assessment that we've been using, you've got to understand that it's not just the calculation, it's also the reasoning that's important. And I'd like that, if you take that home and do it as a piece of homework, I'd like that. But remember to use the reasoning about why it is and explain your reasoning rather than just a few jotted points, okay? Now I'm going to leave that with you to take away and have a go at, okay?